Today's lesson is Online Drawing 4, Lesson 2. And today we're going to be working with line. Last time we did thick and thin line and tried to describe shadow and shading by varying the thickness of the line. This week we're going to be working with contour line, blind contour line, and cross contour line. The subject matter will be your hand, and when you look at your hand, you want to of course use your hand that's opposite the hand you draw with. It's good to put it on a surface where it contrasts. I put it on a dark book. I also have to arrange it so that I can get it back in the same shape, and so I take note of how wide the fingers are splayed and the general relationship between the thumb and the small finger. We're going to start with a contour that is across a blind contour, and I'm going to show you an earlier one that I did. It is not accurate in the way that sketching is accurate. It is an exercise geared to helping you see what you're looking at more clearly. It's a kind of line drawing where you only look at the page when you're lifting your pencil up and you're replacing your pencil, which means that proportion and perspective may be a little bit off, and that's fine. What we're really trying to register is where the changes take place when you're drawing your hand. And you'll see that there will be changes at the knuckles, when you hit the fingernail, any time where, in my case, I hit my ring or there was a bulge in the top part of my finger. It will be over accentuated because that's what the eye does. It sees a change and your hand will probably register it like you're registering a disturbance on a Geiger counter. Your hand will register the change, and that's what you're trying to train your hand and your eye to do. So instead of a straight line, we're thinking fingers are straight, right? We're instead looking at where they're not straight, and that's what the blind contour can help us see and respond to. Now I'll start at my wrist. I do a little bit of my watch, and I basically just slow the line down to the place where I can show the shifts when they happen. And again, I'm only looking at my paper when I lift my pencil and before I put it down again. And that's my first pass, and my second pass will be the knuckles, the marks I make in the centers of the fingers. Okay, so now you can see my line does not necessarily render a perfect scale hand, but what it does show is every time that there was a disturbance on the line. And so by doing this, this is like a pre-drawing for the contour line drawing that we'll be doing. You'll try to remember everywhere in the cuticle, everywhere in the knuckle, everywhere at the point of the finger where it hits the cuticle, that there was a relationship change. You were going in one direction and it changed direction. Even the lines on the interior, I have veins in my hands here, you may not have those, but it shows me the directional line of the composition of the hand. All right, so now, after I've done one of these, you just sort of put it close by so that you can make sure you get your hand back into the position it was in when you did this drawing, when you're doing your longer drawing. The contour line drawing will take longer, and if you have to leave, go to the restroom, or just stand up and walk away, it's good to have an example of how you are holding your hand or placing your hand on your surface so you can get it back to where it was before. All right, now I'm going to show you an example of the contour and the cross contour. Here is an example of just a contour line drawing. This contour line, which hopefully you can see, just shows a few of the lines of the interior around the knuckle, a little bit across the knuckle, but mostly it's an outer edge. What makes this line drawing interesting is the dark and the light and the pressure, much like what we did last week, which is you can alter the pressure of your pencil and create a lost and found line that goes all the way around the fingers, and also where it disappears between the fingers. It infers a line that's almost there but not quite visible. Later, after you've done your contour line drawing, we'll be adding some cross contour lines. Now, you don't necessarily have to do them in both directions. In this case, they're just going across. They're showing the underside of the fingers. There may be a cross hatch in the shadow area. That just makes it a little bit darker. But don't feel that you have to cross hatch. All we're doing really is showing the cross contour. So if it's curving up like this, or it's curving across like this, you're basically talking about the surface and moving across the surface of the hand. Here is another example. Sometimes the lines can be straight. They don't have to be curved. Sometimes the lines can just be on the underside where the shadow is and leave large areas empty and white. So you do not have to show your clothing. You do not have to show any drapery in the background, but I do want you to try to define the edges of things, where they go into shadow and where they have reflected light on them by having less or more or less lines in that spot. Okay, so I'm going back to my original drawing and looking to see how my hand is laid on my book. Now I'm going to be pressing down pretty hard because in order for you to see it, it has to be very dark. But you may want to start with a lighter line when you're doing your outer contour edge. Now this is your outer contour line, and your outer contour line does reflect the nails and the relationship between the foreground part of the finger and the background part of the finger. In both cases, I see more of the right side and the right side all the way across. So I want to make sure that that is reflected in my drawing. And over here I see more of the left side. I also am making some marks in the hand so that when I start drawing the cross contour lines, I am prepared to go up and down at the points where there are either protrusions, like there would be on this knuckle, and indentations, like there would be underneath this finger, going around. So making some marks to show what overlaps what, where the skin crosses in front of this other part of the skin, and how, especially in the outer edge, things connect. So you can give yourself a hint, oh, there's a change here. Because my light is coming from the left, the right side of my hand will be more in shadow, but there will be a reflected light because of the white paper. So I look for the dark in this center region. I'm going to move over to my ebony pencil, which will change the depth of the dark. And notice that I'm leaving a plane of light. This is where the light is bouncing off of my fingers. And I can clean up these lines a little bit later, but I want to make sure to register where all the darks are before I move my hand. I squint at it to see where on the far side we have a little bit of dark. There are tendons here and here and here, and so I'm making a mark and then drawing the shadow to the right of it. And here is where you can practice with feathery strokes. See what lines you like. After you've put them in, you can also take them out. Now I have used an ebony pencil, probably more than you will. Again, I'm trying to make sure that you can see my lines, which is trickier on the video. So you may want to spend more time with your number 2 pencil than with your ebony pencil. But as you build up the shadows that you see, there will be points when they are so overlapped that they will look almost like a black. And so you sort of look again to see where those really dark darks would be, and you can go over them with more pressure. You can also spread them out wider for a lighter amount of gray. But that's the idea. And as you go along, you'll find that you can manipulate the line a little bit. You'll see a little bit better as you go along where the indentations are, smoothing them out, reapplying the line so that the bulge is in the right place. You can even use your eraser to soften edges or make them more contrasting. I'm now double checking my lights. My lights go down the center of my fingers, making sure that they stay and are not overwhelmed by the darks. And because this is more about line, it's nice if you can clean up your line at the end. This is where I turn my paper, and anywhere where my dark lines came outside the contour edge, I can clean up at the end. Turn it upside down. Sometimes your eraser works better in that direction. And last but not least, clean up your paper with your kneaded eraser. And have fun.